Welcome, welcome. My name is Bill McNerney. I am a senior judge. I'm a retired healthcare executive. I serve on 3 boards now, and I do community service. And this is my 5th year in this competition, 4th year as a senior judge. So,
Good afternoon. My name's Beth Hines. I'm both a lawyer and a business manager. I have some experience being on nonprofit boards of directors and very much look forward to hearing what you have to say this afternoon. So welcome.
Thank you.
thank you. Let me just read the instructions, okay? In this part of the competition, you're taking a fictional business identity and assigning the fictional business identity to the judges. So we are on the board of directors, and that's the role we will play. You will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem, and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, teams will be uninterrupted, so you have full 25 minutes. When you are finished, the judges will ask you questions for 10 to 15 minutes. During the Q&A, both the judges and yourselves will remain in character for the presentation. After that period of time, we'll come out of our characters and we'll be able to give you some feedback. In the 25 minutes, when you've reached 2 minutes left, I'll put my hand up with 2 fingers letting you know there's 2 minutes left. Okay? Are everybody okay? Any questions before we start?
Nope.
All right, let me sit down, get my clock ready,
Perfect.
and then when you're ready, just let me know.
Okay.
Ready to go?
Yes.
You may begin. Go.
This industry moves fast. Trends are cycled constantly, and our identity and expression is linked so closely to the clothes we wear. As billions of garments are produced, billions of dollars are invested, and millions of workers fall under the fast fashion umbrella. In turn, 92 billion tons of textile waste are produced each year that will end up in landfills. We're so excited to present to Winnie Park today, the new CEO of Forever 21. And we're so excited to present to you because you are trying to move away from being a fast fashion brand, as you had announced when you were placed as CEO last year. We're here to answer the question, how can Forever 21 reposition itself as a sustainable company and introduce environmental sustainability in its production and inventory authentically? We've analyzed and researched the problems, and we have diagnosed the issues as overproduction and large orders, high inventory that leads to waste, and a lack of transparency for your consumers. We want to analyze these problems through 3 lenses: financial, legal, and ethical lenses. We've ultimately come up with 3 recommendations. Re-engineering the tech by using your existing AI technology, reintroduce transparency to your consumers by implementing a sustainability report, and recycling textiles through a partnership with Sura. All 3 of these recommendations will not only introduce transparency to your stakeholders, but also help in reinforcing the circular economy, reduce waste, and implement sustainable practices to your target market that is evident. I will now pass it over to Carol, who will take on the current progress and gaps.
Thank you, Sophie. So as we were evaluating Forever 21, we want to highlight some of its strengths, its weaknesses, opportunities that it has, and then threats. The main thing to highlight in terms of its strength is an established market, but beyond that of the market of millennials and even younger millennials, it's their legacy brand. They were built by a family of immigrants from South Korea who actually realized their American dream. And then with that, they have opportunity to rebrand right now after the bankruptcy. But as we evaluate, we see their weaknesses as, okay, they are participating in sustainability initiatives, but it's not clearly defined. And so we need them to have more accountability and to state what they're doing more, which they have masked more internally. We want it to be external to the consumer, to see what you're doing to enhance sustainability initiatives. And then finally, the fast fashion landscape is broad, and you have two main competitors, H&M and Shein. However, we think that despite them having the market share right now, they can, Forever 21 can reestablish itself and gain market share. So in order to do that, we believe that sustainability initiatives are key in regaining their competitive advantage. And as we look here in the slide, Shein and H&M, they take up the most of the market share. And one way that they can reclaim market share, that is Forever 21, is to really be detailed about your sustainability reporting. Because currently we do not see that as the public, and we wish that it would be more open. So next slide, please. So in terms of the UN SDG goals, there are two brackets where Forever 21 can improve. One is with goal 8, which is to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, and also to provide decent work for all. And then number 12, which has to do more with its transparency. But as I look right now, we at the SDG 8, we look at the store. In the stores, we highlight that they can do more to maintain not being fined by the Department of Labor, where they can really take care of their employees to make sure that they have fair wages as well as safe working conditions. And as we look at their suppliers, we realize that they too fall into committing wage violations. And so we see that they can improve in that area as well as working conditions, because the industry and even suppliers that Forever 21 use have had the term sweatshop conditions being applied to them. So we want to reduce that. So as we move on now to SDG 8 in terms of what you can do, we see that they can do more to protect labor rights and to promote a safe working environment, but they really need to be more explicit in that, as well as to really show how they are holding their suppliers accountable for not using forced labor or child labor, because Forever 21 is a merchandiser, they don't make their products, so they depend on their suppliers to actually fulfill the compliance in this regard. And for number 12, number 12 is talking about sustainable consumption and production. And so with Forever 21, they've had a lot of waste in their producing their goods. And with a lot of waste, they also have inaccurate forecasting. So they don't know in terms of what they are generating in terms of product. And so we determine that in order to produce better accuracy in terms of their production throughout the cycle, that they need to leverage AI to prevent overproduction. And then they also need to partner with companies who recycle dead stock, because when you overproduce, you're leaving a lot of material in-house. So that's one aspect. And then the second aspect is to really adopt sustainability reporting, because they do not have any. You're a private company, so you're not required to do so. But in terms of transparency, we advise that you initiate a yearly reporting cycle where you clearly define your sustainable practices. And now I send it back to Sophie.
So in order to bridge the gap between where Forever 21 is at, the SDG goals that we think are relevant to you, as well as where we think Forever 21 can go, we want to implement our 3 solutions: re-engineer the tech, reintroduce transparency, and recycle textiles. I'll now pass it over to Rachel, who will describe the first recommendation.
So for our first recommendation, re-engineering technology, we want to really utilize your current AI software to help better predict consumer trend and demand to help lower waste within your upstream. So currently within the retail industry, 87% of retail inventory ends up in landfills. Also within the upstream, 10% of fashion products contribute to CO2 emissions. So since, as my colleagues mentioned, Forever 21 is a private company, we went off of H&M figures since both of you have similar business models. So we found that 4.3 billion of unsold inventory, we believe, is sitting within your upstream. And we actually think that number's higher because of your decreased market share over the years. So because you're sitting on all this inventory, it's contributing to the 87% of the inventory within landfills. Another thing that we've learned about Forever 21 is the 6-week lead time from production to end product. So due to the short turnover time that's sitting within your upstream, it's also contributing to what's ending up in the landfills. So with that, we really want to use AI to help combat this because research is showing that AI is really helping the retail industry achieve the net zero goals. So with your current software, Donde, it's more of a consumer end product. They have this analytics dashboard where consumers can kind of go and just see what the product catalog is for Forever 21, but we think that the software could be used more efficiently. And due to the bankruptcy that we mentioned earlier, it was due to a lot of store volume and a lot of inventory management issues. So we think that your analytics team can take Donde and use it in a more efficient way by kind of seeing what consumers are searching for, so you can better kind of predict what to buy in your suppliers. So with that, there's research that's showing that using AI can actually decrease cost of goods sold and inventory by 50%. So we think by using the software more efficiently, you can then decrease your unsold inventory by 50% so it doesn't end up in landfills. And also too, another nice perk is that using AI has also been shown to help decrease in returns, so then you won't have to ship them back to your upstream, they won't sit there, and it'll decrease the waste within the landfill. And with that, I'll turn it over to Daisy for Rec 2.
Thank you, Rachel. So our second recommendation is reintroducing transparency. We understand that you, Forever 21, are a private company, but customers care about transparency. So we really think that developing a sustainability report with clear KPIs and goals will improve transparency with customers. We did this graph using your market share, and we've seen where your competitors are. We also use the women's wear price in the market and the fashion index, fashion transparency index. So right now, Forever 21 sits right here, in between premium pricing and economy pricing within the fast fashion industry. And with our recommendations and our transparency that we want to introduce this report, we want to move up towards a more sustainable future for Forever 21. How can we do that? Why this matters? Why this matters for Forever 21? We've seen in our research that 35% of consumers rank the trust in a retail among the top priorities when they are buying. Also, we've seen also in our research that between 2 and 10% of this transparency within the supply chain will increase profits. We came up with this idea of how the sustainability and social report would look like. Picture yourself in 2 years. You can have one of these. We also think that we can introduce these contents. These are important, and these are the metrics your customers will evaluate. You can talk about sustainability and social, and people, the supply chain, because Forever 21 relies on your supply chain. For the sustainability, we're using 4 main sections: circularity, climate, water, and packaging. We developed some, we saw what you actually have in your webpage, and we did we proposed some objectives and clear KPIs and goals, and I will walk through you one example. The packaging first. Right now, your website indicates that Forever 21 provides 100% recyclable and reusable plastic along with paper bags in their stores. We can reshape that, saying that paper, cardboard, and plastic used in packaging will be sourced from post-consumer recycled materials. stating a clear KPI, the percentage of post-consumer use, and our goal, your goal, 100% by 2030. For our third recommendation, we would like to recycle textiles. From here, 5 years ahead, in 2028, we think a partnership with CIRC will help recycle cotton, polyester, and polycotton from the dead stock in the production process and in use inventory. CIRC is a company that is using an innovation system that recycles the textile in the dead stock and and the unused inventory, and will extract the fibers and will create and will recreate the virgin raw material. So we'll have a new textile coming from the unused or unsold inventory and the dead stock from the production chain. They use heat to do this transition. How this partnership would look like. So in 5 years, Forever 21 will recover revenue using our recommendations, and you'll have the power to invest in equity in this company in CIRC, and CIRC will handle these unsold materials that will introduce. This will close the loop, and will introduce also Forever 21 into the circular economy that is so important these days. Now I'll hand over to Annie, who will walk through you the financial impacts.
Okay, so now we will move forward to the financial statements. So as Forever 21 is a privately held company, we do not have a direct information on its finances. However, we use comparable valuation, which means that we use publicly traded companies to make similar assumptions to Forever 21. In addition to that, Forever 21 has recently filed bankruptcy, so that's why we assume that they have a net losses in 2021, 22, 23. And also, we assume that the revenue also declined from there. Into the details, I can show you in the appendix. And also, by doing the comparable valuations with H&M and Uniqlo, because they both publicly traded, we see that for the cost of goods sold, those two companies around 50% of its revenue. SG&A is around 36%, marketing is around 3%, and depreciation is around 13%. And also, Forever 21 has a huge debt of $500 million in debt, and we assume that it was for 30 years, so we calculate the average annual interest expense, which is around $19 million. So for the financial projections, we believe that our recommendations will enhance and will help Forever 21 to gain a profit. And how does that work is that we assume that all the expenses, SG&A, depreciation, marketing expense remain the same as a percentage of revenue. However, the two factors that we need to consider are the revenue and the cost of goods sold. The revenue, we assume that it will increase 8% based on the average growth rate from 2015 to 2030, the compound annual growth rate of 8%. So that's why we see an increase of 8% from 2023 for each year. And the cost of goods sold, as Rachel has mentioned, that using AI and other implementations we recommend, we hope to reduce it by 50% in 5 years. Therefore, we assume that each year it will reduce, our cost of goods sold will reduce by 10%. So now Sophie will introduce the legal lens.
Thank you, Annie. So I want to go into the relevant laws and procedures that we have researched and analyzed that have helped us not only diagnose the issues for Forever 21, but also helped us come up with relevant recommendations. The first laws that I want to bring to your attention are the Fabric Act and the Fashion Act. The Fabric Act was introduced in 2022 and it has not been passed yet. However, if passed, it will require companies to disclose supply chain acts as well as wage acts in their supply chain. And brands will be held jointly responsible for wage violations, not just the suppliers. The Fashion Act will require apparel brands and footwear brands to disclose emissions and waste emissions and develop actionable targets to reduce those emissions. Now, while both of these acts have not been passed yet, it is relevant to Forever 21 because it is evidence that attention is being brought to brands that use third-party suppliers and have previously avoided legislation and regulations because they use these third-party suppliers. So we are noticing that this is a trend in legislation, and these upcoming regulations will effectively restrict the current business model that Forever 21 currently implements and disrupt their current operations. So it is important for Forever 21 to not only comply with these laws and regulations, but get ahead of the curve by following upcoming regulations. And they can do this by implementing our recommendations of re-engineering the tech, reintroducing transparency, and recycled textiles, so that they are transparent to the consumer and the relevant stakeholders, as well as introducing waste reduction within their processes. The next law that I want to bring to your attention is an existing law within California, the California Transparency and Supply Chain Act. This existing law requires companies to eradicate human trafficking and slavery within their supply chain and within their production operations. It also requires companies to be transparent in their wage policies for their suppliers. We have noticed lawsuits and alleged allegations against Forever 21. For example, in 2004, the ACLU alleged that Forever 21 attempted to silence workers in California for requiring them to work in sweatshop conditions. We also noticed in Forever 21 underwent a lawsuit in 2012 where allegedly Forever 21 had not paid workers minimum wage and had also not paid overtime to workers that they were due and paid them by the piece that they had produced, which effectively had them paid under minimum wage. We believe by implementing reintroduced transparency recommendation that Forever 21 will avoid such lawsuits in the future as well as comply with these laws. I also want to bring to your attention the EU Strategy for Sustainable Textiles as well as China's Circular Economy Law. As Forever 21 attempts to re-enter the European market and uses suppliers mostly based in China, both these laws are similar in that they require brands to implement circular strategies within their supply chain, reduce waste, and recycle within their supply chain. We believe by implementing our re-engineering tech and recycled textiles recommendations that Forever 21 can effectively enter the European market and uplift their suppliers who they depend on financially, as well as their reputation depends on their suppliers. And we believe by implementing our recommendations that Forever 21 can become under compliance with these laws. I want to analyze Forever 21 under an ethical lens, and I want to do this by expressing the tangible good and harm that Forever 21 has effects over. So Forever 21 uses third-party suppliers, and Forever 21 is a victim of the fast fashion industry. Many fast fashion companies are accused of using garment workers, exploiting garment workers through overworking them, unsafe working conditions, and low wages. This impacts 40 million workers as well as their families. This is a startling impact that Forever 21 and other fast fashion companies have. It's almost 1% of the world population. It's crazy, and we believe that by implementing our strategies that Forever 21 can effectively reduce the harm that these workers are facing. We also want to bring attention to the environmental harm that Forever 21 is effectively participating in by, being a large, having a large market share in the fast fashion industry. The fast fashion industry contributes to waste through CO2 emissions as well as landfill waste, and especially during the production process. This impact is on a global scale. It affects the world population and essentially our home. And the environment and the global population are the largest stakeholders for Forever 21. And thus our recommendations allow Forever 21 to reposition and define a balance of good over harm. I want to pass it over to Annie, then she will cover the risks and mitigation strategies.
Thank you, Sophie. So there are 3 potential risks that we have identified. First is the financial and technology management risk. So as we're aware that in previous leaderships, they might have a short fallback in their financial management. So we believe it's critical that the new leadership board should really periodically review their financial statements along with analyzing its investments and financial decisions. In addition to that, we are implementing high technology, artificial intelligence into our business operations and strategy. Therefore, it is critical that we maintain a high security and data protections for our consumers. Our second issue is the partnerships and agreement risk, because we are leveraging and having new partnerships, and we need to ensure that there is a clear agreement between parties so that we reinforce sustainability. Third risk we consider is the accountability and credibility risk, because in the previous leadership board, they made the statements to the public that they wanted to be more sustainable and be more transparent with consumers about their products productions. However, we see little to limited evidence to that statement. So we believe that
All right. 2 minutes.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
We have to stop.
Okay, so we believe that it is critical. Stop.
I'm sorry. We have a time limit of 25 minutes, and
Okay.
we have to keep it to that, so we can't give some teams more time than other teams. So thank you very much. So as a board of a company that's in bankruptcy right now, obviously there's a lot of questions associated with what you're recommending. The first question I have is, can you be more specific on how your recommendations can address the issues with regard to the lawsuits that we have from our employees, past employees, current employees, and the issues that are facing suppliers on non-payment of overtime, wage violations, working conditions, those kinds of things. How specifically do your recommendations begin to address those, or begin to improve them or eradicate them?
So we believe so first I want to acknowledge that Forever 21 has faced bankruptcy in 2019 and is currently recovering, repositioning, and rebranding. Because of that, we understand that Forever 21 does not have the capital maybe right now to implement more drastic strategies. So we want to start small. Something like implementing a sustainability report where they can be transparent about wages and violations and come up with metrics and goals is something that they can do in-house and will not cost anything or cost very little. This report will help Forever 21 hold itself accountable, as well as allow stakeholders to hold themselves accountable. They have clearly lost market share over the past 2-3 years. And we believe that by implementing this report, stakeholders can see the differences and tangible goals that Forever 21 is making, and hold Forever 21 accountable to reaching those goals by buying their things or not buying them. And we believe that this recommendation is a very small step towards bigger things that they can implement in the future. But it's an important step, especially because competitors are releasing these reports, but we haven't noticed that Forever 21 has not.
I appreciate the report, you know, it's information. But where's the accountability that those issues that the report identifies are actually being addressed and taken care of? Is it through contracts with the suppliers, and how are you going to secure that?
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so right now, if we go through Forever 21's webpage, we see that there is an actual vendor agreement between suppliers and Forever 21. But what does this report means? It makes Forever 21 accountable because you're having these objectives. Right now, we acknowledge that Forever 21 have some steps towards sustainability and being more ethical. But we can't know, and the customers can know, and the stakeholders can know where you at right now and where you're moving towards. So if we set these specific KPIs and goals, we can help Forever 21 accountable. They will be measuring. On the website, it says that you already audited, but we couldn't, and the customers can't, and the stakeholders can't know who you are auditing, how many times. This is why this report is important, because it will lead you through that accountability.
Beth?
Yes. So the first thing I wanted to probe was your recommendation about recycling the dead stock. And I was wondering two things about that. One is, are our competitors doing that? And secondly, what revenue do you think that will generate for the firm?
So CERC has been backed right now by Inditex, Zara. Inditex is the father of Zara. Zara is one of our competitors, of Forever 21's competitors. Also Patagonia. So these companies have already invested in CERC because this is a new technology for recycling these textiles. In China, this circularity law exists. So this is supposed to be implemented. So as most of the suppliers are based in China, we think that this partnership will move towards this circularity, economic circularity goal that you can do.
And do you know how much revenue? Do you have
Yeah,
any guess?
the recycling market is growing 6.4% each year. The recycling of textiles market.
And so do you have a sense of what type of revenue that might generate for us?
We did a forecast, because currently we did from 2024 to 2025, and based on the timeline, we won't do it until, we won't start partnership until like 2025. So based on our revenue, we can see that we have a net profit of like 986. So we can invest part of it to partner with CERC in the future.
So you see that as more of an investment than, I thought I heard somebody say that that would result in potentially some revenue, because the dead stock is inventory we've invested in already, right? So when they recycle it, do they?
They sell it.
They sell
Yes, they sell it as raw material and virgin fabric, or virgin material. And Forever 21 would of course get a cut of that in form of equity that they have invested. We don't have an idea of exactly how much revenue this will generate. However, we do know that the market is growing by 6.4%, and that this equity style partnership will lead to revenue as the product will be sold to brands, to whoever might use these raw materials.
Second question is, do you know whether our competitors are using AI in the manner that you're suggesting to try to predict fashion trends and therefore maybe more precisely target the manufacturing process?
Yeah, there's a lot of research that the fast fashion, like Zara, H&M, have started to use a little bit of the AI to kind of help with their product waste. And so we think that since you guys kind of use the Donde, what's really good about it is you can go back and re-engineer it at no cost. We did some research on that. So you can go and be like, hey, we kind of want to look at
the production
the
side.
production side of things, not like kind of the consumer, to kind of help buy with that inventory management and help lower. Because we've also learned that you guys had a little bit issues in the past with underbuying and overbuying. So we think by using this, you can really help manage that better.
Yeah. And I guess my third question has to do with looking at your forecast. So if we just target 2027, where will that place us in terms of market share?
Market share, I believe, because each year we have, because back in 2023, I think the market share was around like 9%. So hopefully because when we add all the net losses, it's like by 2026, we can already gain a bit of profit to recover all the 3 years history losses. So by this, I believe it should be higher than our 2021 market share at 14%. So it should increase over than 14% market share.
Where are the costs for the true recommendations that you're suggesting captured in the financials?
Well, for the first recommendation and for the second recommendation, we're assuming that you have your engineers and your team and your analytics that can work in this. So we're not having like a big cost for implementing these recommendations. The Donde is already being used. It's just to just to switch it to do the predictions. And for the sustainability report, as you've been said, that you already following some audits and some suppliers, there's information that it's there, so it just needs to be gathered, defining in a better way so we can have clear objectives, clear KPIs, and clear goals. So this can and don't have to cost that much or no cost.
Yeah, recommendations 1 and 2 are more re-strategizing. So we're assuming that there's no cost. We assume that Forever 21 has an analytics team, has a engineering team already in place, as most brands do. As well as the sustainability report, this should come at no cost. It's more just re-strategizing Forever 21's current operations. For recommendation 3, we are not fully sure how much capital Forever 21 has to invest, as this might change every year, and for every brand it might be on a case-by-case basis. That being said, we assume it will be more than at least $2 million, and Forever 21 will have the capital to invest in a partnership such as Sura in 2028.
So could we go back to the financials?
Would you like to see the impact, or the current situation or the projections?
No, the projections, I think it's the next slide. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're really not making any investment at this point on these financials, although the first 2 we have the internal capability to be able to do that. The third, we're not sure what the cost is. Then help me with the assumptions that get us from a operating loss from 21 through 23 to a positive in 24, 25, 26. What is turning that around? If it is not, if we're not making the investments here, what is the turnaround being driven by?
Okay, sure. I think we can show in the appendix. So, which one? Yeah, that one. Yeah. So this is what we researched, that how much growth in the market share in the fashion industry from 2015 to 2019 and moving forward. So we calculate the average of 8.2% increase in revenue. So we assume that we implement that in the revenue for Forever 21. And the cost got us so, as we research and as Rachel has mentioned, that we want to optimize our AI, and the optimization for cost within 5 years is around 50%. So I assume we cut the cost 10% each year, and I assume all the other expenses remain the same. Can you go to the next slide? Oh, the next slide. Go back. Oh, Yeah, so this is based on all the percentage comparisons to all the publicly traded companies. So we assume that all the expenses, the percentage of revenue for other expenses remain the same. So that's why it creates a profit for
Okay. Any other questions? Just the, you know, as a board, you know, what you're suggesting is we sit here in bankruptcy, looking to drive out of bankruptcy. Given the recommendations that you made to us, and knowing the organization that you do, having gone through all of the financials and all of the other operational issues, what is the biggest risk to us now? The single biggest risk that we need to be concerned about?
I think that there's a gap between consumers that say sustainability is important to them versus consumers that actually purchase because a company is sustainable. There's a gap. And I think Forever 21, it's very important to capture those consumers that do actually make purchase decisions based on sustainability. I think that's the biggest gap that we see because our recommendations are mostly cost saving. And
Yeah, and
with the
following
exception of recommendation 3.
following the line that Sophie is guiding me towards, so Forever 21 has got most of millennials, all the people that it's among millennials. So right now, Forever 21 is in risk also that not capturing the people who are environmentally conscious, but losing the ones you already had because of this, of the same. Because you can capture a new market that is aware of sustainability, and you can lose the ones you already have because of sustainability too. Because you are not walking toward a more sustainable economy.
Anyway, thank you very much. Well done. So this will give us an opportunity to kind of step away from our rollout and give you some thoughts or suggestions. So Beth, do you have any?
Sure,
Thoughts or
so
observations?
overall, I would say you did a really, really good job. And there were many things I enjoyed about your presentation, not only stylistically, but also your analysis. I think it was very good that you capitalized on legal trends, for example, because you want the company to kind of get ahead of the curve and you're seeing that they're soon going to be mandated to do these things anyways. They should try to get ahead on that. I also thought it was good that you were able to show us financially how you thought your specific recommendations were going to result in an increase in market share. What I would say is that it's because they are in bankruptcy, that's put you all in a tricky position, so you obviously were trying to be cost effective in your recommendations. But on the other hand, it didn't really address the question of where is the growth going to come from. Is there any closer way to tie your recommendations to what would fuel growth? And again, I don't know what that recommendation would be, but it just, that's kind of an obvious thing when you're sitting on top of a company that is in financial distress. But I thought you were very creative in coming up with ideas that would help the brand overcome this perception that fast fashion now has, which is that it's a kind of a dumping ground for environmental hazards. So I thought that was very clever, and I like the idea of trying to get into the circularity movement. I think that could potentially position them in a way that would make them more the buying choice for those environmentally conscious consumers. And it certainly gives them a different story to tell if in fact they can make that work. That was the only other thing that was a little unclear to me, what on the one hand we would make this deal with Sura, and I wasn't sure if we were going to be paying them something to be in the deal and then getting money back when they sold our goods, or is it they're willing to enter a deal with us because they're going to take a percentage of this fabric and split whatever they could sell it for. I just wasn't clear on exactly how that worked, but I thought it was a very clever recommendation. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, your presentation was reflective of the amount of time and effort you put into this. It showed. It's a difficult proposition you've got for the bankrupt company. And, you know, tying this together, particularly for a board, is challenging when you don't have access to actual numbers, and you're making assumptions and forecasts. And so, I mean, as a thing to consider in the future as you do these kinds of things, is your projections, you know, are a little aggressive for a company in bankruptcy. You don't want to be as aggressive with those numbers like the industry standard of what the growth is when you have a company whose brand is suffering and is in bankruptcy and is trying to work its way out. So you want to be conservative and beat the numbers, you know. It's great. Because the board is going to look at it and they're going to be very skeptical about where numbers are and how you're going to achieve those numbers, as Beth was talking about. Where's the growth coming from? I mean, where's it going to happen? The other thing I would consider is, you know, from an ethical perspective, the challenge that Forever 21 has, not only with the lawsuits and the issues, but the culture of the company, which is a risk, because the culture of the company has allowed these things to go on in that environment. What are we doing to address those things in addition to the other things that are being suggested? Because you can make a lot of changes, but if the culture doesn't begin to change, and there's some change in the way we operate, you're going to have the same issues again, because it's a very tough industry, as you know. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of stuff going on, and that can really pull you down with those wage and hour lawsuits and stuff, which can cost us, you know, millions of dollars in the back. So just something to think about as you go through this. But boy, taking a tough project like this and pulling it together and doing it, did a very nice job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
especially a privately held company.
Yeah.
Very good job,
Yeah.
you know, with compared about analytics. Very good
So
job trying.
congratulations. Do you have questions for us?
It wasn't more of a question, but I wanted to just make something like, if you go down the sustainability road, you have to be authentic and stay true to it, because if you do it half-heartedly, it's gonna come out, and then your brand will be tarnished more. Because recently, some of your competitors, well, at least one, I don't know, they branded themselves sustainability, but when you analyze, like, say, water usage, for example, and they were showing that it was, I think, about 20% less water used in the manufacture. But when an external organization actually took a look and investigated, it was the opposite. It was like 20% more. And it was in more than one of its products. They were saying, okay, the reduction is much significantly lower, when it's actually the reversal. They were actually using more. So if you were to go down the road of being transparent and also committing to being sustainable, you would have to be aware that you need to be honest with the consumer, because people are watching what you do with respect to this, because there's a premium on sustainability too. So if you're charging your customer a premium saying it's sustainable, and in fact it's not really sustainable, then you're going to lose credibility, and then you'll be heading in the opposite direction. So that was just something to make you be aware of if you were to take on board our proposal.
That's almost a project in itself, you know, because when you were talking about the gap between, you know, the sustainability, what will actually somebody put their dollar out for that or not, they're going to buy it because they like what it looks like, versus what you're talking about, where you got to make a major effort into it. If you're in bankruptcy, is, you know, I think that would make an interesting case study. You know, I don't have an answer for it, but it certainly is a challenge. But you're absolutely right. You both, and those are really valid points. I don't know the best way to approach it, but sure it'd be kind of fun to try to look at it, so.
Commit to it. Just commit, because our environment and our world needs everyone to commit, right?
You're right on it.
It's also a different core competency for these companies, though, when you think about it. Who really runs, first of all, fast fashion is oxymoronic with sustainability, right? Because you're by definition producing it after an award show. It's popular for that prom season, and then nobody wears that garment again. It's the idea of this throwaway fashion. You don't invest a lot in it. It's not well made. It's not made to be washed 100 times. So I think that they have a problem just in the whole category has a problem in the environmental. And then you think about who these executives are. They may be adept at hiring firms that can sew, let's just say in China. They may be a lot less adept at figuring out, well, how should that operation in China work to be more sustainable? That's a very different kind of skill set. You need some engineers, you need people that really are local also to where that place is located. Is it near a river? What kind of access, could we put solar panels on the factory and then, trying to mind your suppliers in terms of their labor practices in these other countries. A lot of the problem you have is that the labor laws in those countries don't require anything. You can exploit labor legally. So even though we have things like the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and some of the acts that you're saying our Congress is considering, it becomes impossible to then manage that in India where that's not the law. And so I think it's a challenge for these companies because they don't have competency. They don't have core competency in trying to coach other players in the marketplace to get to a different spot. And as you guys all pointed out, which is true, they are not the manufacturer. So they're not directly managing these other firms. So, but I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Excellent job, and best of luck
Thank you.